money. I will provide a consistent taxonomy for money and explain the fallacies of regression, debt loop, risk-free return, unlendable money, thinner money, full reserve lending, restrained credit expansion, inflationary, market money, in 35 minutes. Thank you. All right, so that I was pleasantly surprised, and generally is fairly very consistent actually with what I would say. Some things around terminology, definitions tend to, it depends on how you define things. So there's some differences, I'll point those out, maybe in another presentation as well. Okay, so this is right out of the book, whatever. A taxonomy, the naming system here for money. Breaking money down into present stuff you actually have, and things that people call money, which are actually money substitutes. That you can convert to money in the future. They're future monies. So money can be broken down into commodity and fiat. In other words, commodity just being a general term for it has use value. You can use it for something like wires or whatever. There's no pure fiat because you get at least none that we know of, because Bitcoin can be used for time stamping and dollars. Hey, that's nice. Dollars make good soda stars. But again, this is a theoretical definition. We consider fiat defined as not having use value. And so I use the term monopoly money instead of state money because it's not the fact that it's the state that makes it different. It's the fact that the state, in all cases, but doesn't have to, creates monopoly protection for the production of the money. Therefore, it's produced under monopoly. There are laws against producing it yourself. So that implies that a monopoly price can be extracted because there's no competition. So under commodity money, we have monopoly money, which would be the US dollar coin. Those are not, nobody else can produce those, but they can have any kind of melt value and still be called dollars, and so people can be compelled to trade them for something and have dollar value. Market money, which is, commodity money is generally measured by its weight, so you silver bullion. Even though monopoly U.S. money, coins, U.S. commodity monopoly money doesn't actually extract a price premium. It's actually purchased from the Federal Reserve at face value. Purchased from the Treasury at face value. But then again, the Treasury may make it for cheaper than their face value. And then under fiat, we only had one kind of fiat prior to Bitcoin, which was monopoly money, state money. And I think people believed, because there was no other example, that was the only way you could have a fiat money. And that's why I believe the term fiat is associated with a declaration by fiat that something is money. And it just turns out that there's another type of fiat, which is produced by the market, which is Bitcoin. It also has no use value, non-material use value, so it falls in the same category. You notice Matt didn't want to go quite that far. He said there's a lot of similarities with fiat, but it really has no distinctions if you look at the definition of fiat. So money substitutes, we find these in electronic form, account money, for example, a Visa card. You're not moving money, you're moving a substitute for the money, which is credit. Matt used a more financial system conventional term for that because they like to let you think it's money and call it bank money. But it's not money at all, it's credit. And he did point that out. So I use the term money and credit. It's very simple. Credit expands on money, which he did point out, right? This is the lower graph of the actual base money and then the bank money, which is credit. So it's really just money and credit. You can have representative money substitutes, like a tangible note, such as a U.S. silver certificate. That's the full taxonomy that I have for currency. Okay, I just got a bunch of different topics that are not all connected. I'll go through. Matt actually covered this. I thought it was well covered. It's consistent with what I say here. But I get a lot more. I tend to be more at the theoretical level than he is. So I had this discussion with somebody who was basically, this is a thing you see thrown around once in a while, that the dollar, fiat money is a debt move. I had a hard time even in the book defining what they intend to mean by a debt move. So if I owe you $10 and you owe me $10, there's no debt. A debt move means there's no debt. So I'll talk about that a little bit. So debt is a contractual term, right? It's a person owes another person something under some conditions. If those conditions are met, there's a debt, and when the contractual terms are met, the debt is called settled. And settlement is the process of satisfying those terms, which in many cases just means when you give me the money and I give you the motorcycle, the contractual terms are over. But if it's a rental, there might be some continuing contractual terms. So settlement means that the contract is over. So debt doesn't have to be settled in money. Debt can be settled in other debt, right? And I give you a contract for something that you can then obtain, whatever it is that you want in the future. But between you and I, we settle because we now own the contract. And that's in large case what happens when we're doing bank money transfers. We transfer some money over to through Western Union to companies doing the boat cruise. And once it clears into their bank, right, they don't have the money, they have credit for the money. So I've transferred some credit that I have to them, and that's considered settled just when it shows up in front of the account, right? So it doesn't have to be settled in the money. But somebody, when we're talking about money substitutes, somebody is settling money, and Matt made that point very clear. You can't have credit without having it be credit for something. Right? So there's always money and credit and money, and they evolve together. So credit just doesn't show up one day with money, and then all of a sudden there's credit, expansion. Credit is always fully extended on money. It's a duality. Right? They exist together as part of one thing. Okay, so this debt idea, debt can be circular. It nets out. When, say, two banks have, they owe each other some amount of money, it comes to settlement, they just net it out, done. No need to move anything. And a lot of transactions, a lot of obligations or debts are netted out in financial systems, and just personally, right? It should be a fairly obvious thing. But it can be circular, therefore. If $100 is a claim for $100 worth of something, it settles itself. You already have it. Because it is $100. It is the worth of something. So it doesn't really make any sense. It's kind of hard to explain. A claim worth nothing other than what another will offer for it is not a claim. So Bitcoin is only worth what somebody else will offer you for it. It's nobody's debt. And made this point very clear. It's just dollars, just paper. That's it. It's not a claim on anyone. That's, it doesn't matter whether the state or the issuer accepts the claim as a money. They can accept gold, it doesn't make gold debt. They can issue the gold and accept the gold. It still doesn't make gold debt, and dollars the same way. They accept them, but how much do they accept them for? $100 bill is worth what? $100 offset on your tax? Well, how much is that? It's $100 bill. It's circular if you accept that reason. So it doesn't make any sense. So I came up with this concept of debt regression to explain it more simply. If there's no regression, there's no debt contracts, and people are trading with stuff, it's, and they have all the other properties of money, then it's a money. No debt regression. If there's a single regression, it's kind of a special case that's interesting. It's called a representative money. So a dollar note or a silver dollar note, silver certificate, would be representative money. It represents a certain amount of something else. It's credit, like a bank account, right? You can go get something else if you want, and the other person owes you that if they're obligated to provide it. So it's a single regression. It's kind of a special case of the general case, which is finite regression. Money substitutes. They're not money. They're claims on the money. They're IOUs on the money, and that's stuff about this. Then we have the other possibility. There are other possibilities of infinite regression, which is not possible in reality. No infinity is going to be ever settled. So yeah, debt fallacy. Regression fallacy. This is Mises's regression theorem. So I mentioned before that this is an error that he makes, and I think it's an interesting aside. I think Mises makes 2 or 3 errors, and in each case, he's bending over backwards to denigrate fiat money, which is understandable, but by making those errors, he propagates other errors, and it's not really helpful. There's other ways to do that properly, and I think this is one of them. I think he's just simply trying to show that fiat can't be money, right? It can't be money because it didn't originate from a commodity use. You might say, well, it was originally a money certificate for gold as a commodity, which originated as a money because it had commodity use. But that really doesn't follow his theorem. So either you can believe that, okay, fiat is money because of that, but some of them didn't start that way, right? Or you can believe that fiat's not money because it didn't go through that path. But my argument is just that the regression theorem is just flawed and therefore invalid by Mises' own criteria. So he says no good can be employed for the function of a medium of exchange which at the very beginning of its use for this purpose did not have exchange value on account of other employments. Actually, at some point it says industrial use. So all these statements apply to the regression theorem are announced apodictically. As applied to the a priorism of praxology. It must happen this way. Let me just say this is just it's a proof, not a theory. It's a theorem. Again, back to the axiomatic system that he describes. So nobody can ever succeed in constructing a hypothetical case in which things were to occur in a different way. Well, first of all, regression is the idea is that commodity use, somebody gets some gold and, they're using it as a commodity, making jewelry, whatever, fill teeth, and then somebody says, hey, that's kind of useful, and they start trading it as money. It gets exchange value, and then it gets commonly used as a medium of exchange and becomes money. I think it can't possibly occur any other way. And it makes the argument that the value attributed to the money, this is the regression. So remember, value is subjective. He accepts that by his own criteria, his own system. Value is subjective. So how do you come up with this objective, kind of valuation of money? He actually says that today's valuation is based on remembering yesterday's valuation. Yesterday's valuation is based on remembering the day before. On and on, regressing until you get to the point where it had commodity use. So if it didn't progress from commodity use, it couldn't possibly be a money. The problem is he fails to terminate that regression, right? It has to terminate somewhere, and he says it terminates at the point at which it had commodity use. But what about before that? For somebody to use it as a commodity, they had to actually figure out that it had a use. Somebody had to look at some gold in the ground and go, they think that's useful. That's a subjective valuation as well, right? It's not objective. Things aren't objectively valuable. They're valued because what's in people's mind. So it doesn't terminate at that point because it goes all the way back to some subjective valuations. He's arguing that the yesterday's value is objective, which contradicts the subjective theory of value. And it goes to terminate it, and then it actually continues back to the point where there was definitely, even if you're accepting that regression of remembered objective value, the original valuation had to be subjective. Because it didn't have anything to remember. You couldn't remember it before it was used. So the original value can be for whatever reason. You can pick up some gold, you go, gold, it's shiny, I like it. Bitcoin was created as a money. It didn't have to be remembered that it was something else in 84. We'll know about money, and so presumably said, let's make a money. That's what he said, right? Take him at his word. Created it as money. I don't think there's any reason to need the regression fallacy, except again, Mises seems to be trying to just denigrate fiat. This can't be real money because it didn't go through this process. Well, dollars can't be real money without ever having been tied to gold. And I think there's examples of that too. So I don't think this is making sense. There's people who have tried to justify this fallacy by using arguments about, it had prior industrial use as a collectible. That's another fallacy of collectible tautology. It just doesn't actually say anything. But I won't go over that. Some people try to kind of hold on to Mises's regression theorem in the face of Bitcoin. But I don't think there's really any need to before. Okay, so risk-free return fallacy. There was somebody I actually gave a talk on this at Honey Badger. This is my talk last year at Honey Badger, or one of the parts of it. So this was just the idea that we could achieve this hypothetical, which is called risk-free return. It's purely a hypothetical concept. Return on your investment without any risk, which means the risk is associated with releasing control. You have the property, you give it to somebody else. Now you have risk if they don't give it back. So the proposal was in Bitcoin to use a new opcode fixed time covenant on the loaned units of the coin by the lender. The lender encumbers those coins for a certain amount of time, and then lends them to somebody. And then and then collects interest for that loan. You can collect it up front. I can give you 10%, I'll give you this loan over a 1-year period, so give you 1/10. And sounds great. Use the money. It's got this great, utility, and then you get it back at the end of the loan. There's a whole big discussion on this on Bitcoin Dev, and I was like, this makes no sense. So the lender cannot spend the units until the maturity of the loan, right? And the lender, I can't spend them, maybe the other person has it, and the ownership of the units returns to the lender at the time of the covenant, and value to all recipients at maturity is 0 because it's been returned to the lender. So just imagine, I lend you some money and I charge you the interest and I get it back at the end of the term of loan, but to be any use to you, you lend it to him or you buy something from him, right? And anybody says, there's all this money spread out, right? Everybody's spending this money, and then, boom, it all disappears and goes right back to me. Perfect standpoint, right? All those people who held the money on the day that happened are bag holders. So once people know that, the scam kind of breaks down because everybody who realizes they're going to be a bag holder, they say no, and the person before them says no, and the person before them says 0 value gets imputed all the way back to the loan itself. I mean, the loan has no value. So this idea of this loss of opportunity by the lender, this cost to the lender of locking up the money, means there's value being created. Well, that's just a misinterpretation of scarcity, I guess. Just because the lender doesn't have use of the money doesn't mean anybody else has. Nobody has any use of that money, right? The lender will get it back, will have that use, but nobody else can actually use it. So, doesn't apply value to the borrower. That was the error of that theory. It's analogous to simply destroying the time value of the money. The lender locks it up. People can't really use it. Gets it back. Could have lent it during that time and made interest on it, but didn't actually lend it, made no interest. So he destroyed the time value and never gets it back. And that's what happens when money is hoarded versus invested. You destroy the time value. You accept the opportunity cost of not taking the risk of lending it, so you don't get interest. Unlendable money. So we're talking about, as soon as I said you don't get interest, and I know people say, well, I get great returns on my Bitcoin, so I don't need interest, right? The idea that it could be unlendable money. So again, talking the theory behind this idea. So the presumption of a deflationary money. So we talk about inflation, deflation. This is deflationary money. We're talking about changes in the number of units of the money that exists. Whether they're usable, not the effect on prices, which is price inflation. Those two are often conflated. We're talking about deflationary money, which means that when people use the term deflationary money, they're talking about the purchasing power of the money rising because there's no new units of the money being created or there's declining number of units of the money. So what's the basis of this? We have a fixed amount of money. Why do we assume that it goes up in purchasing power? The answer to that is always the same. It's a change to what's called the money relation, which is the ratio of the amount of money to the demand for the money. The money relation changes, the purchasing power of the money changes with it. So if we assume that Bitcoin is, say, just the global money is the one money is used, and there's no economic growth, is there increasing demand for money? No. And most people accept that. So economic growth implies more demand to use money. There's more stuff being done with money. right? Such as representing more goods, demanded to trade more goods. So deflation in a fixed supply money is a consequence of that. It's assumed because of economic growth. Now, the deflation we see in Bitcoin in its early stages is what we call monetization. It goes from zero to something because people anticipate they'll be able to trade it for something in the future. They don't know how much, so they kind of guess, and eventually it settles on some value, like everything else that gets created and then exists. And I'll talk more about price of Bitcoin later, but I'm just going to leave it at that. So growth, that starts getting, again, some of my simplifications of economics or clarification. Growth is interest, this would be commonly accepted, less something else. Most people would say less consumption. Interest is production. The interest, the dividends the company issues, the interest on the bond, all that stuff, that only comes from somebody producing something and selling it at a higher, enough of a price to be able to return profit, not actually profit in economic terms, but a return on that capital. And that average rate of return around the world we call interest. So interest is the new stuff, the products being made, the debt, the delta between what existed and what you invested and got back is actually new products that are being sold. So depreciation, as we talked about before, is the loss of stuff. That's all stuff going away because it gets consumed by time. And growth is how much. What's the change in the stuff over time, right? So you have increasing stuff and you have decreasing stuff, and if you have a net positive, it's growth. If you have a net negative, it's recession. So if interest is, say, 10%, this is a reasonable number around the world, I took up the exercise of looking at financial depreciation tables, all kinds of stuff, food, buildings, tractors, boats, just huge, disparity from. But if you try to ballpark it, you get a number that's 5, 6, 7, 8% depreciation of all stuff that is considered property. And that's a really interesting exercise. I wish somebody would actually do it. But let's imagine that it's 8% and interest is 10%. Stuff is being produced at a rate of 10%. Stuff is being depreciated at a rate of 8%. So what's growth? Growth is 2%. This is why growth. If you look at growth numbers, it's 2-3%, and you say, wow, it's not even near the interest rate. The interest rate is like 10%. Why not? Because stuff is getting destroyed at the same time. So if you go to a society that destroys more than it produces net, it's a perpetual recession. What do you end up with? Nothing. Eventually, you have nothing. So you end up with a black market that then starts producing things, and you have that kind of growth. But this does happen. And North Korea is a great example. You just depreciate everything that exists, and you don't produce enough to offset it, so it's end up at zero. So what happens if you are in recession? The stuff you're producing is getting consumed faster than it's produced, or all the stuff that exists is being consumed, and it's not being replaced by new stuff. What happens is stuff becomes more scarce, right, on the market. In other words, its price, that's what scarcity means in economic terms. Its price is rising. The price of one thing is now higher. It's more scarce than it was. So prices rise. When prices rise, when you're the person producing this stuff, the price of the stuff that you make is rising. You're selling it for more money. You can get more investment because the return on investment is higher, and people who lend it 10%, people who only lend money at 15% won't lend at 10%, but all of a sudden you get 20%. Sure, they start lending, right? It becomes more money available because there's more money being made, and all of a sudden you go back to growth. So either you depreciate all the way to zero, right, or you have growth. Staying kind of flat, neutral, I guess it's positive, possible, but there's more people in the world, so. But I actually wrote this in the chapter, probably do a better job explaining it, but there's kind of this natural pressure towards perpetual positive growth. People, when things start getting more expensive, they extend lifetimes of things. Drive their cars longer, depreciation slows down, interest rates rise, people invest, stuff gets made, people get satisfied with that. Okay, so growth is generally positive because then interest is always, if interest is therefore always greater than inflation. I'm not going to go into the Fisher equation one more time. So if it's growth that's driving up the purchasing power of a fixed supply money, right? There's always a delta between them, which means there's always interest to be made by lending it, right? Setting aside the speculatory effect, and it would make sense, right? I have something and I lend it out to somebody, which is valuable to them. I would only do that if I make some money in return. Why wouldn't that make sense? It always makes sense. So that's evident from the axiom of time preference, and I've spent a good amount of time on that. And I might just lead you to the book on that one. Oh geez, yes I should. All money's lendable. Thin air fallacy. Let's quote. Lord Adair Charter, former UK chief financial regulator, said, banks do not, as too many textbooks still suggest, take deposits of existing money from savers and lend out to borrowers. Instead, they create credit and money, underlining ex nihilo, means from nothing, extending a loan to the borrower and simultaneously crediting the borrower's money account. Or that money account is credit. The account is credit, the money is money. So the idea here is that the world has somehow changed. We're not actually lending money; we're just creating it in the bank. This has nothing about central banking or anything like that. This is a bank. Anybody you call a bank can do this. So I suggest that I should create a bank and I should do this. Right? Why not? Why wouldn't I? It's implied that anybody could. It's not unexpected that a chief financial regulator for a state would want you to think that the state's not just printing the money. But they are. And so, let's see if okay. So, this is a good topic. I'm going to go through some details and tables and kind of help walk through the scenario. But, my timer seems really off. Okay. No way of making fun of it. You know what I might do? I might take some more time on this one and just short up the next one. I think it's going to or short up. I have two more. Yeah. What happened is Corona struck and I stopped working on my slides. The last two presentations are a little bit short on slide content, so I need to shorten those up a little bit, but this is better. So, money from thin air. So, something has changed. People don't like to save up money and then lend it out anymore. Banks are the source of money and they just create it out of thin air. It's, to me, nonsensical, but it's based on this accounting thing that people call an accounting gimmick, an accounting trick, a crime, something like that. It's just basic accounting. And I've had a discussion with a guy on Twitter who supposedly did a scientific experiment to prove that this was the case. And basically all he does is he becomes a shareholder of a bank, and it's a small enough bank, he's got a big enough amount of money, he shoves it through the bank, sees the loan on the balance sheet, and sees like, look, see, that's what they did. They just created these two entries in the accounts. So they, okay, but how else would they possibly account for the money and the credit, right? But in discussion with him about this, he comes out and says, well, they've created money because see, there's a bank account with a number on it. I'm like, that's a credit, it's not money. So it's just, it's basically it says right here in his quote, Lord Adair's quote, like credit and money. Right? So he's actually saying, he's making the distinction, but in this other one, it's like, no, by creating a bank account, that's money. So not clarifying what these terms mean, like Matt was very clear what money is versus money substitutes, credit, or bank money. They're different. So terminology becomes important because otherwise people get really confused. And he did this whole thing for what I can see no reason, pointing out that banks actually create credit against the money that exists. And if they create credit against money that doesn't exist, when somebody settles, the settlement fails. The bank is broke, go out of business. They made a contract that they could not comply with. So settlement is completely ignored in these discussions. But a good example, it's in the book. Person digs up some gold, walks into a bank, says, "Here, put my gold in the account." Or the gold sits in the vault. The bank gives him a bank account, and he trades on that bank account. So If he then withdraws the gold, bank account is closed, it's settled, there's no obligation, right? So say somebody walks into a bank and says, I want to borrow a bag of gold. And so they hand the gold over the counter and they create a debt account for the, account holder. He owes them that money, and the bank has a credit account there. That's their credit. They're accounting for it using a monthly ledger. But then what happens, well, I got this bag of gold, I don't really need it all right now, so I hand it back to the teller and I say, hey, can you put this in an account for me? I just borrowed it. It's not what always happens. You borrow the money and then it's in the bank account from where you borrowed it. Because banks like that. They want to lend you the money and then have you deposit it back in their account. So they don't actually do that. They don't hand you the dollar over the counter and then put it back in the account. They just put it in the account. But it's no different, right? So this is basically saying lending this money out by putting it in another account is this charade where we created account money and other money. So now we've just created new money. But it wouldn't be any different if you actually took the actual bag of gold and then said, deposit this gold for me in here. You would end up with the exact same account. And you're doing a really poor job explaining that, because part of the tables you just follow when you're all through your patient. You can see that the two scenarios are exactly the same. If you issue the loan, create the account, put the money, credit in the account, or hand it over the counter and put it back in, it's exactly the same. But by ignoring settlement, you're not ignoring the fact that if you lend money you can't get or don't have, you fail, and that's what constrains. It's the money that constrains lending. Okay, full reserve fallacy. This is Rothbard, and I just want to point out that a lot of people, call themselves Austrians, believe that Mises, Rothbard, etc., kind of support this idea of full reserve. Terminology again. Rothbard is very, very explicit about what he means when he's talking about this. And I just pulled this quote right out of the Economic State. When a man deposits goods, I suppose it works for women too, but at a warehouse, he is given a receipt and pays the owner of the warehouse a certain sum for the service of storage. He still retains ownership of the property, which I think technically is not correct. He has ownership of credit for the property. But the owner of the warehouse is simply guarding it for him. When the warehouse receipt is presented, the owner is obligated to restore the good and deposit it. In other words, transfer ownership and settle the contract. A warehouse, my underline, specializing in money is known as a bank. Okay, I'm talking about a warehouse which only does essentially safe deposit. You pay them for the service of storing your gold. Someone else's, so if you go on then, someone else's property is taken by the warehouse and used for its own money-making purposes, it is not borrowed since no interest is paid for the use of the money. Right? So he's talking about this warehouse now. Just stealing this out of the bank stealing your gold out of your safe deposit box and going and spending it. You didn't invest it, you didn't expect interest in return. If you did, then they would have to do that, and that would be part of the agreement. But in this case, he's saying, no, this is not what we're talking about with these banks. You're just saying you literally paid them for safe deposit and they stole your money. Or they issued somebody else a money certificate or a certificate for your deposit box, which is also another way of stating money. Let somebody else take it, right? So obviously there's this right analogy there to state issuing money certificates for gold, holding it for you, telling them to give it back to you, and then either issuing certificates for a lot of other people that didn't have the gold, but now they can get it, take yours, or actually just spending it, which is obviously what they do. So he gets really loose about this in some less rigorous works, like What Has Government Done to Our Money? Doesn't make these distinctions. He just talks very loosely about banks. This is what he means by bank. So we talk about full reserve banking. That's what we're talking about. No lending, not possible. He even says that no interest is being paid, no lending. So when we talk about banks today, everybody thinks of banks that take interest on accounts. They're taking your money, they're investing, they're paying interest. And even though, because of financial repression, interest rates are very low, same process, right? You're collectively investing. It's a mutual fund. The interesting aspect of it being that it's a first come, first served basis when there's losses, as opposed to a money market where there's a proportional loss, a little more rational. But it's the same principle. You're investing your money when you put it in a lending institution, which we think of as banks. He's saying bank, he's saying warehouse, literally. Okay, so this is what people put back. Yeah, full reserve banking. It's all awesome. This is nonsense. There's nothing about that. It's very explicit about. So I'm going to talk later about like, could you do full reserve lending? And the answer is no, you can't. There would be no lending if there was full reservation of everything, because nothing's being lent. It's all reserved. But you know, I know that requires more explanation. I'll get into that maybe here. Credit expansion fallacy. Okay. So there's this idea that lending by bank, and again, I'm kind of just talking about free banking, right? I'm not invoking the state here. I'm just talking about how banking works. Okay. Banks rip people off by creating money out of thin air. Banks rip people off by not being full reserve. Banks rip people off for devaluing money by expanding credit. These are all errors, significant errors. Credit expands on money. You have a certain amount of money, you can lend it. That person, so you say, I have a table, this is in the book, it's like just a table of numbers. This spreadsheet shows the effect. If everybody reserved at 10%, and the first person started out with a certain amount of gold, and 100 ounces of the spreadsheet, and they lent out 90%. They lent it out to one person. That person now has 90 ounces of gold. They lend out everything but 10%. They reserve 10%. Obviously, it's fractional reserve. They're not reserving all of it because they're lending it. So as this goes down, if there's a minimum size, transactable amount in terms of gold, there's dust, and same thing with Bitcoin, then you don't get the full, integration of all this. But at 10%, I think it's 10 times minus the minimum transaction size, which is the way it's going in the book. It doesn't go all the way to 10x. But everybody lending out what they got to somebody else. When you take out a loan on something, you typically leave the loan in the bank. It's collecting interest, right? And then you use it over time. So that is a loan to the bank. You borrow $1,000 and you leave $900 in the bank, and you keep $100 in your pocket. You're loaning the bank $900, and then the bank says, "Well, I got $900. I'm going to lend it to somebody else." Right? What are you doing? But you don't have to think about it as just going back to the bank. Just think about it as a linear progression of people. I loan to you, you loan to the next guy, you loan to the next guy, you loan to the next guy, and then these loans get paid off and backward. But that's how all lending works. There is more credit than there is money. There is necessarily more credit than there is money, unless borrowed money does not get relent, which it does commonly. So what's the rate at which that expansion occurs? We said 10% reserve. So we saw, I think it would be, 900? I don't know what it was, but there's, I think it would be 9. So you went, the amount of reserve determines how much credit is expanded. If the reserve is 100%, no reserve, and that determines the interest rate, which is basically the same thing, and Rothenberg says that, and that number, that ratio, the aggregate across all people, that's what determines the amount of expansion of credit on money. Time preference alone. So banks don't expand credit, they're just people lending money, and you're just doing it through an intermediary. If there were no banks, people would still lend, and you still have credit expansion, and eliminate all the banks. It's not going to change anything because you're not showing that can change people's time preference. And why would you want to change people's preferences? The whole objective is people getting what they want. All right, anyway, I can just go, I want this forever. I'm eating at my own future time, so I can do it. Time preference is what determines that level of credit. You can see that in the spreadsheet. The numbers will change based on assumptions of time preference. So there is no ongoing expansion. If time preference is everybody 10%, it's already expanding. Everybody's already done their loans at 10%. This is, regression goes back forever to the beginning of time. Money evolves, credit evolves, they stay together. So if time preference changes, there'll be more or less credit. But let's just assume, when we're setting aside time preference, we're talking about banks having this credit expansion, as if one day all banks show up and boom, or it's just a perpetual increase, right? It's not. Once the money's fully expanded, once the credit's fully expanded on money, which it always is, based on current time preference, nothing's changing. Now, if you create more money, right, the thing that the credit's expanding upon, create a certain amount of money, there'll be the same ratio of expansion on that money, assuming time preference doesn't change because of new money. So new money will cause new credit on the money. So if the state creates more units of the dollar, yeah, there's credit expansion on that. This is not a function of banks. This is a function of dilution of the amount of money, which creates more money and creates more credit. It's not a function of banking. Okay. There's no way I'm making it 5 minutes. Talked before about monopoly money, dollar euro, explaining why I use that term. So not subject to competitive production, there's anti-counterfeit laws. That's what they say. Monopoly money. That's what the state does. They get a monopoly premium on the production of it. Producer can obtain that premium in the pricing of units. This increases the proportionality of money to goods, or the demand for the money, resulting in price inflation specifically because it's a change to what's called the money relation, the ratio of money to demand for the money. Increase some money without increasing the demand for the money, which you can only do as a monopolist in production of money, and you get price inflation. Fixed supply money, so let's just say dollar euro, state money, right? Fixed supply market money, late Bitcoin, I mean fixed supply once the supply increases effectively ended. The proportion of money to goods or demand for the money decreases with growth. So there's economic growth, as we talked about before, right? There's more demand for the money, and there's a fixed amount of money, and that's what causes the purchasing power of the money to rise. People generally accept price deflation. Assuming there's more demand, and we're going to talk about that later. Rising supply money, market money, I should say, gold, early Bitcoin, there's new production of Bitcoin. So the interesting question here is the production of gold in the market, without any monopolistic state force supplied, or the production of Bitcoin in the market, same thing, is it price inflationary? This is the next case where I would argue that Mises errors, obviously, and he even points out his own error, and then does a huge amount of hand-waving to try to obfuscate, I guess. I can point you to the page or it's linked in the topic. But he basically argues that the increase in any, and again, he's doing this to denigrate fiat money, right? Just creating more money creates inflation. It even happened with gold, right? State can do a lot more. Really, it doesn't happen. Gold's just a product like any other products that are made. As demand for it rises, say economic growth. Say economic growth is 2%, 1.8%. Let's throw that out there. Demand is rising for gold, but no new gold is being produced. What's happening to the price? Fixed supply, rising demand. It's law of supply and demand. Price is rising, right? But people anticipate that. The price is going to rise because there's economic growth and there's nobody's mining gold. So people will maybe project that out and align some gold ahead of time. Which I say that if maybe the price won't even rise, it'll get mined because people anticipate it's rising because there's economic growth. So when the price is going to rise, competition comes in, they can capture a premium for the rising price. Competition brings that premium down to zero, and now they're earning their return on capital from profit made, so nothing above the interest rate, but they're keeping that steady. So this is how all prices work. This is why prices are generally stable in a money that's market produced. Prices are not generally stable in a money that's monopoly produced. So this is true of everything. Bicycles and motorcycles start getting more expensive. More people make motorcycles, now the price comes back down. The price it reaches this stability. So for a miner to go out and mine gold, they need to take some of their own capital, demand other products for the purpose of mining gold, depreciate those products while they're doing it, right? Destroy them, produce gold, and then the supply of gold has been increased, but the demand for gold was also increasing, right? They actually had added demand for gold. They bought new products to actually go mine gold and then destroy those products. But the point is, it should be pretty obvious that the law of supply and demand, even though there's more supply, because there's rising demand, will make it non-inflationary. It's just beyond me how Mises argues otherwise. Even points out that would be the effect, but then again, it's hand-waving. Rising supply market money is not inflation. That's my theorem, the inflation principle. It's the monopoly production of the money that causes the price inflation because there has been no increase in demand. That's the assumption of the monopoly price. If there was increase in demand in market money, there would be more production of the money in proportion to the increase in demand, and you would maintain a stable price of money, which is actually what you want. You don't want a constantly rising purchasing power of money, or it constantly decreasing, or high volatility. You really want a cheap to make stability. Gold, silver, and other things have done pretty good with that. Supply shocks still exist because of things like the Comstock load, whatever huge amount of silver discovered. Okay, so the reason I emphasize the 1.8% growth was because that was the number Matt used for the mining rate of gold. Like 1.5% on silver. That's the term to use. I made a mental note. I gotta point that out because that's probably the number I use. Okay, if new amount of it is being produced at the same rate of economic growth, what does that tell you? It's not the difficulty of finding it. It's not some like inherent property in gold. It's not the difficulty of it being more difficult than silver. It's the price. Price rises because there's more demand to use it. There's more money to be made mining it. Competition comes in and mines more of it. The price goes back down. Price increase, the supply increase, the monetary inflation of gold and silver tracks pretty closely to the economic growth rate. No surprise. It's not a property of the metal. Not at all. Price gets higher and higher and higher. You're buying more and more. So this idea of hardness, it's historical, first of all. It says nothing about the future, right? So it's not really useful. It just tells you the past. Hardness of the money, I've got a whole topic on stock flow, but I just wanted to make that connection here when we talk about inflation, that scarcity means something relative, the market availability of something relative to itself. Gold can be more scarce today than tomorrow. It cannot be more scarce than silver. Right? That's not the economic use of the term scarcity. So keep that in mind. It's the demand for it that determines the supply. Okay. I went way over time, but I promise you I'm going to eat into some of my other ones because I like these better. Questions?
Have a microphone running around.
How was it? Oh, this came from behind me.
Who wants the microphone? I'll also come up the stairs if you want.
I call on people, I warn you, just randomly, because I can. You with the stars. And the anchors. No?
No? Anyone?
Yeah, I think I got lost in the part of the thin air fallacy. Are you saying that banks don't really create money out of thin air?
Am I saying that? Yes, I said that.
So they do not create money out of thin air?
No, the Treasury creates dollars out of blue jeans. Or they used to. They stopped doing that because the stretchy jeans messed it all up. I still like saying blue jeans. No, they don't. I mean, I can elaborate, but I just have to redo the thing. So maybe, yeah. I mean, banks don't create money. They create credit. They issue credit to borrowers.
Well,
they don't create it.
Stairs.
You guys can run it. Get up there. There you go.
So I know we have this argument on Twitter, but maybe because we're going through it.
At 140 characters at a time?
Yeah. Maybe.
Closer.
That is
Do that. I can't catch anything.
Okay, so trying once again, echo, very weird. So, hoarding, you said that this is high time preference, and we have
higher than not hoarding. Yeah.
As opposed to what most people think that this is low time preference.
Right.
Hold on. Okay, it's working. We have a starter, and it was like really long, but can you maybe summarize it right now, once again, for people to really grasp that?
I think I have a whole slide time preference fell. And
Yes.
or maybe I have it in a couple places, so I get kind of lost and kind of all over, into a bunch of topics and try to consolidate them. Yeah, but as I talked about a little earlier today, the time preference is a ratio of what you have to what you have contracted for in the future. Right? You have a preference for stuff now versus later. If you have your stuff now, you have it now, that's high time preference. I want my stuff now. What people do is they misinterpret, using the psychological definition, consumption. Now I've said very clearly, and made a good case, that consumption is depreciation, not purchasing stuff. You buy a house, sell it later, it didn't get consumed. You know what I mean? So you didn't actually counts as a bad example, but you buy something and you hold on to it, you could trade it to somebody the next day and be almost entirely worth what you paid for, right? So that's not the act of consumption. Owning something over time is the act of consumption, not the purchase. So people talk about deferring a purchase. I'm not going to buy that until later. And that's my expression of time preference. That's an error. You've taken something you have, say a motorcycle, you said, I'm going to trade that for this. Now I have that thing, right? So you have a preference for this thing over that thing, but you still have all your stuff. You just change its form, right? Same thing happens with money. I have money, or I could have a car. Or I have a car for a while and I get the money back. Right? There'll be some depreciation there over time, but the act of buying something is not itself consumption. The act of holding something is consumption. I can't, a little louder.
It's like you're reframing the definition of your life.
No, I'm correcting the erroneous definition, which is very clear from any reading of economics or even the basic Wikipedia article on time preference. I'm just correcting it. And the reason people believe this is because their Bitcoin earns speculative returns. They see that as the equivalent of lending for return, therefore they see it as a time preference question. Now, all prices change, Bitcoin included. The distinction is not the fact that the price goes up or down of the stuff you hoard. The distinction is between the fact that you hoard and the fact that you lend. And also, it's very clear in any definition, it's a definitional question, very clear in any economic definition, that the ratio of stuff you hoard to stuff you lend is the same as the interest rate. You find that, actually it's kind of buried in Rothbard, but very clear that the interest rate is the direct reflection of time preference. Right? So only something that could affect the interest rate directly is an expression of time preference. Trading your dollars for a motorcycle doesn't change the interest rate. Right? Lending your dollars changes the interest rate. You have an effect on the interest rate because you're lending something. You change the form of your capital. You're still holding it and you want it now. I want my dollars now, or I want my motorcycle now, but I still have my capital. Expecting your capital back in the future for some premium that you expect, that's a loan, whether it's an equity investment or a bond. Those are regulatory financial distinctions, non-economic distinctions. A loan is when you surrender your capital in expectation of future returns. It's an investment or a loan, and that is the expression of a lower time preference when you increase. So if you start out with a certain time preference and you say lend at 10%, and the lady says, I'm not going to lend, I'm kind of scared, things are going to shit, I'm not going to lend unless it's like 15%, then I'll lend, right? What's happened? You've increased your time preference to a higher time preference, you're holding more stuff, but you will lend if the interest rate changes. So there's all these kind of errors, like it's a preference. You can't say what's going to cause you to do that. Your behavior will change based on your preferences. It's like saying, I use this example in my book, it's like sexual preference, right? Just because there's a law that says it doesn't change your preference, you just might act differently on it, right? And that's the same thing with the interest rate, right? You change interest rates, the law, if you change the interest rates, it doesn't change your preference, it changes how you act on that preference. If rates are lower, you're more likely to lend. Your preference may just always be 10%. It's below 10, so you always lend. You lend until you get to that point where you've lent out 10% of your, or 90% of your capital. Anyway.